Today's webinar, we are exploring how AI is changing the buying process. And we're really going to dig in for sales teams today and what they need to understand about how the way that they're selling and the way that their target audience is changing using AI. And I think for anyone that's currently trying to sell anything, whether you're a founder or you're in a sales role, this is a discussion that you can't stay away from because this is happening and it is necessary for all of us to adapt. So let's dive in and really explore this topic in depth. So, just a quick intro, I'm Andy Halko. I started in Civia 24 years ago. And my focus has really been around how do you influence audiences, your buyer specifically, and we do that through Incivia as well as our product Buyer Twin. I've actually written two books, The Buyer Centric Operating System, which is about how you build your entire organization around your target buyer, and The Omniscient Buyer, which is really what a lot of today's webinar is about, is how is AI changing the way people buy services in B2B, consumer, whatever it might be, but how our buyers are significantly changing because of AI. So, an important thing to understand about me, especially as we move into this, there are two things that I really focus on throughout my career and today I'm obsessed with. The first one is human psychology. To me, as I've been in marketing and sales, there is one constant is that we're dealing with humans, the way they think, how we need to influence them, understanding their pains and motivations and buying factors, all of these things that subtly change how we think and make decisions. And now, for me, what has become really interesting is this artificial intelligence side, this technology that is changing the world and really shifting how people work, how they think, and everything that they do. And so the question is, how are these things coming together? What is it about human psychology and how it's changing because of AI? And I think it's a conversation that all of us need to have in business is how are people changing the way they think by using artificial intelligence? So, one of the things that I always start with is that most companies are really focused on how they're going to adopt AI. They want to do things like create more efficiency and squeeze more out of what they do and automate with um, improving tasks so that they can automate all of their processes internally, finding ways to increase speed and reduce costs. And most conversations that I hear, if I go out to an event, I talk to people, everyone is really obsessed about how do we use AI? How do we change our work? But I think that's only half of the conversation, and really one that, in some ways, if you're not focused on both of these two sides, you can really be in a lot of trouble as a business. The other side of the conversation is that your buyers are changing the way that they do everything using AI. And I'm sure anyone watching this can admit that they're now doing things when they go and buy a service, whether they buy something within a business, that they are using AI within that process. And so that's changing the way decisions are being made. It's changing how people compare and how they evaluate. And so we really need to, as businesses, understand that if our target audience, the people that we want to influence, if they're changing their behaviors, their decision making is different than it's ever been in the history of the world because of AI, what do we need to do to adapt to that? And I really do think this is something that is rewiring people's brains. they're acting different, they're thinking different. And so we really have to consider our prospects and our customers as an entirely new being that is half human and half AI, because that's what they're using every day. One of the important parts of this conversation is that often when I talk to folks about artificial intelligence in revenue operations, increasing their top line revenue, most people go to marketing. They typically think, okay, well, we've got to make sure that we show up in answer engines. And if you follow marketing or you're in that space, you know that answer engine optimization and visibility in answer engines is a hot topic because people are shifting away from search engines to AI engines, which is a whole nother topic. And I've got webinars, go back and check them about how to do that. But the bigger conversation is that AI is really now moving more into the sales process, that it's influencing sales. And so, if we're not thinking of it as not just visibility, but truly how it's impacting how people compare, validate, find proof, handle questions, all of these things that happen after they become a lead, if we're not seeing how AI is influencing that, we are again missing a huge part of the conversation and building a strategy that can help make us successful. So, one of the things that I really look at is AI is truly influential across the entire buyer journey. So again, most people focus on that awareness stage. Someone going into an answer engine and saying, who are the best companies for this need that I have? But what AI is it's integrating itself into the rest of the buying journey where we're really looking at consideration, and it's asking questions like, will they be able to support my specific need or challenge? So it's really getting into some more depth about the solution. Then in evaluation, provide me a side by side comparison of these three companies that I'm looking at and tell me exactly who is the right person that I should keep on my short list. And then decision, which we're going to be talking about a lot today. Most of today's webinar is about this decision stage, but they're uploading their proposals and they're making AI help them score, evaluate, and actually give a recommendation to say, this is the company that you should decide and choose. And then, really, one thing that a lot of people aren't thinking about is loyalty. Is now AI is one of those tools that people go back and say, I've been working with this company 3 months. Here's the results that they're giving me. Here's how much I'm spending. Should I stay with them? And if not, what are some alternatives that I should consider? And so AI is not discovery anymore. It's not, hey, it's a replacement for search engines and we need to focus on answer optimization so people can find us. It really is, we've got to think about every interaction that a buyer might have with our company is now influenced by this invisible co-pilot that is giving advice and telling them what to do. So again, if you are in any sort of marketing or sales role, you need to be thinking about this and thinking about this change because it really is impacting what you're doing every single day. So, we're talking about decision. And one of the things with decision that I think people have to come to terms with, it doesn't matter if you're adding the word confidential to every proposal or putting it at the bottom of your emails. Those folks are putting in an AI. In some cases, they may have AI integrated into the channels that you're communicating, and it's just doing it without any effort. But the reality is that most people now that are trying to make a decision about something, AI can improve their decision making process. And so they're not just asking a couple questions, they're going and they're giving the context of your website. They're uploading your sales emails and copying and pasting. This is what they said along the way. They're adding call transcripts because they recorded the calls that they had with you. And then they're putting your sales deck in, they're putting your proposal and contract into the AI as well. Then they might be adding some onboarding docs that you gave them ahead of time or other materials. They might be grabbing content from your website like support. And then they're also saying, here are the other competitors that I'm looking at and potentially all of their information. And the crazy thing is, AI can consume all of that easily. It's not about volume. In the past, I might have handed all of that off to someone in my office and said, you know what, we're looking to make this big decision. Here's all this information. Help me figure it out. That person would take weeks and they would miss a lot and they'd do their best to figure it out. But it wouldn't be the same as what it is now, where someone can upload all of this to AI and within a few seconds can have a world of context around their decision. And so the reality is we have to be prepared for the fact that our prospects are 100% uploading a majority of what we're communicating with them and details of what we're trying to sell into this system to organize it, understand it, get scoring and feedback, and then make the decision. And so, if they're doing that, what do we need to do to change our process? And also, how is it going to affect what we do as a salesperson? So, the next couple slides, I'm going to be going into how this really changes the sales game and what we need to be thinking about in that process. So, one of the biggest things that I think is an impact is that AI really turns everyone into a subject matter expert. Let's talk about before AI. Before AI, I might get a proposal for something. I went out and I needed a new ERP system or I needed something else. I might know a little bit about the topic. And if I read the proposal and I read the contract, I would have a certain level of understanding. If it was really complex, I would have to go ask someone in my office to say, hey, I'm looking at this solution. Do you have some insights on these certain pieces? I might have to go to multiple people within my office to get context. And then a lot of times I would scan and just look at headlines and get, warm and fuzzies from some of the quotes and headlines that were in it. But now with I put that in there and it reads every single word for me. Not a single word is missed. It connects all the details. Something that was said on page 1 influences something that was said on page 10. As a human, I may have missed that, but the AI absolutely does not. It identifies those gaps. Where are you missing information? And then it applies that expert level scrutiny. I may not have been an expert in ERPs before or even any context around that, but now I am. My AI helps me understand it. It can walk me through it, and it is the expert for me. I don't need to go to someone in my office because now my question can be answered right there. And previously, I may have gone to someone in my office and not wanted to waste a lot of their time or been afraid to look like I didn't understand what I knew. And so now with I have no fear of asking 100 questions and trying to get complete context. And then the big thing, and we're going to talk about this next, but generating the questions you didn't know to ask. As someone that wasn't a subject matter expert, I may have taken people at their word. Now AI makes it so that I can pose questions that I never could have before. And so let's talk real quickly about what AI actually does flag in your sales assets. So if you're uploading, if your buyer is uploading sales sheets, they're uploading proposals, contracts, all of these things, what AI is looking at is claims. Is there exaggeration? Are they unsupported? Are they vague? And then they're looking at risk. Are there missing details, unclear implementation, hidden assumptions in there? And then it can look at value. Is there unclear pricing, weak ROI logic, missing proof? I think about it from my own context. We deliver a proposal. You may not have every pricing detail in there. AI won't miss that, and it will come back and it will tell me, if I'm the buyer, hey, they're telling you this price, but you should be aware there might be these 10 hidden costs, right? And that was something in the past I might not have had. And so the interesting thing too is, on the other side, what AI doesn't care about. So I'm uploading all these materials to help me make a decision. AI does not care about the rapport that we had on the conversation on a call or in person. It doesn't care about the catchy headlines that maybe marketing came up with to evoke emotion in your sales documents or proposals. It doesn't care about the nice graphics that look really polished to give you a sense of, sophistication, or that they understand things. AI doesn't care about that. It reads the image for what it's conveying, not how it looks. And then generic claims. AI will see a generic claim and ignore it because it thinks there's no value behind this. And so if you're providing a bunch of generic claims, for the most part, it's going to summarize them or say there's something missing. And then unattributed quotes. If you're throwing things in there like, a manufacturing client thought we did a great job in 2024, AI is going to flag that as not being legitimate. And so in the past, some of those things may have actually worked in sales and helped move things forward. Now the AI engine is much more logical and is looking at it a completely different way. So I talked about this before, but the questions that you get, this is the thing that I think is really going to start shocking sales teams as they begin to work with buyers that are using AI. But what's going to happen is they are going to be getting questions that they never expected, and questions that really pressure test them. And the reason is that AI will analyze these things and then provide the question. I actually just recently did this for a service that I was buying. Is I put everything in that the vendors had given me, and I said, "Give me 10 questions that I need to ask to understand who is the best option." And they weren't lighthearted questions like, "Have you done this before?" or, "Who is your best customer?" They were hard-hitting questions that said, what is your exact implementation process? And in 90 days, what should I expect? And it really provided me the pressure test that I needed to make a great decision. And so, something in the past where I may have breezed through that process or thrown some light questions because I really liked the person that I had been talking to, now my AI, even without me asking, will probably provide me the questions that it thinks I need to pressure test this decision. And so all of a sudden on sales calls, you're not going to get the softballs anymore as a salesperson. What you're going to get is hard hitting, pressure testing questions that really dig at the solution that you're presenting. There is a reverse side to this too, right? Is that you're actually now not going to be getting certain questions. So you will be getting harder ones, but the reality is there are questions you're not going to be getting, and you may want to worry a little bit about that. Because before, if I got some materials and I read through them quickly, I may throw you the softballs because I just need to learn some information. But the reality is that me as a buyer, I go into this process and it's friction to go ask a question, to come back to you and send an email. It's friction to ask somebody in my office. What is easier now is I upload all your materials and I can ask all the questions I want. I can feel no pressure about it. I don't feel the weight of feeling like I don't understand what I'm looking at and you have to explain it to me. I'm going to AI and I'm just asking any question that I have. And so in the past, these softballs that salespeople often got, they will no longer get because someone is just going to take the easy road, the less friction process, and ask their AI all of these questions that they have, and probably 10 times more than they used to ask you. But here's the challenge is that you don't know what they're asking. You don't know how the AI is necessarily interpreting that, especially if it's in context to what that buyer already has in their AI about their company or the context that it's using from websites or competitors. You can't truly see all of it. And then you have no idea what how these answers are influencing the decision process. It's now a little bit more invisible because if you're not getting these softball questions and you're not having that exchange with the prospect, you're not getting a sense of where the conversation is going or what they're interested in. What you end up getting is no softballs and a ton of really pressure testing questions that almost make you feel like, oh, this is going to be a tough sale. But the reality is the AI is just coaching them to be a completely different type of buyer. And so this is something that salespeople, I think, really are going to have to come to terms with because they're going to see it. They're going to see a change in the interactions that they have with their prospects. So we're going to switch and talk about what do we do about this? So now everything's getting uploaded, it's getting viewed. AI is actually an invisible decision maker that's whispering in our prospect's ear the entire time. So, what do we do about it? One of the areas that we talk about is auditing sales materials. One suggestion that I make for a lot of clients that I work with, first thing that we do, we package up one of their recent opportunities and we take the emails, some transcripts from calls, the proposal that they sent out. And this is especially valuable for a prospect maybe that you lost. You upload that into AI and you start testing. But one of the places that I want to make sure that people start is with that buyer, is that it's great to go and pressure test these materials, but you have to do it from the perspective of your buyer. A CIO at a manufacturing company versus their chief security officer might have completely different questions than a chief revenue officer at the same company. Or if you're talking to a small business and they've got a marketing manager and a founder, they're going to have completely different questions. And so, one of the places that I typically start is understanding who are all the buyers that are involved in the process. There's always more than one. And what is their perspective? What do they need to understand? And what is their viewpoint? Because that is the start. When they put the materials into their AI, the CEO is going to be asking the AI very different questions than the marketing manager will. The marketing manager might want to know about the risk of not getting results, whereas the CEO wants to know about return on investment. So, part of the process of auditing your sales materials uh, is pretty simple. But one of the things I want to push you to do is don't just ask the softballs. You need to destroy your own materials to understand what's going on. You have to picture in your head your toughest prospect, the one that is the most skeptical, the one that needs the most detail, the one that, in the past did ask all of those hardball questions. Those are the types of things that you want to do. You have an AI tool, no one else will see this. This is your opportunity to go in and attack your own materials. And so we typically look at upload, add buyer context. Who is that person that is currently looking at this? Then you attack it with the questions and really treat it as like, I'm going to pressure test my own materials. You make revisions and you come back around and you run that. And you should have a much better idea how the people that you're trying to influence view these materials. And so you're asking questions about Why should I be skeptical? Are these claims supported or not? What didn't my proposal and other documents answer? These are things that we need to understand because otherwise AI is surfacing it for our prospects. So we have to look at redesigning for AI consumption. So I talked about earlier that AI doesn't necessarily care about our sophisticated graphics. They may not care about great headlines or other things. And so we really have to understand, how do we have to design all of our materials, maybe even format them correctly for AI to truly understand them. One of the funniest things that I've run into is, you know, AI sometimes can't even read a document. And so someone hands it off and they put it in their AI, and a buyer is actually asking questions on something that the AI can't read. But ironically, the AI won't even tell them that. What it does is it makes assumptions. It sees the title of the document, maybe some past pieces of the conversation, and even though it can't read the details of the proposal, it's giving answers about it. And so that is a massive risk that all of a sudden the AI of your prospect is hallucinating about what you are presenting. And obviously that's an issue for the customer, but it's an issue for you too. Because if there are other competitors where the AI can read it fully and correctly, they may not be asking the question of, is it? They're just saying these are the right answers from these folks, but this one doesn't seem to be providing the right information. And so we really need to look at, how are we adapting our websites, our sales decks, our contracts, all of these different things to ensure that AI not only can read them, but that we are presenting the information in a way that is valuable for our audience and helps move the decision forward towards us. And so I have 5 areas that I really recommend for people to uh, look at recreating their materials. And so there's not hard and fast rules for this, but these are 5 things that allow you to have some principles for how you should be looking at your materials. And I'll go into each one of these 5 a little bit more in depth, but at high level, you need to structure it. You need to make sure you're proving what you say. You need to quantify it. You have to expose trade offs. What is the alternative? And then you have to design for comparison of, especially the side by side, because a lot of times people are looking for the simple comparisons. And if your proposal isn't providing the narrative, then the AI is making it up. So let's talk about a couple of these. So, structure it. We want to make sure important information is easy to find, extract, and connect. So, at a very base level, we need to be uploading our materials and pressure testing the fact that AI can read it. But then we need to be looking at, what is the text within it, and does all of it provide value? Is it purposeful? And so instead of implementation is tailored to each client, you might want to say something like, the timeline is 90 days, the client resources are 2 to 3 hours a week, and the key dependencies are CRM access, data cleanup, executive sponsor. Because that is the thing that AI will read and provide a much better summation to the prospect than if you just write implementation is tailored to each client. A lot of times that's part of that generic statement that the AI is going to read and say, I've seen that text 5,000 times before. I'm going to ignore it and I'm going to move on to the next thing that actually seems valuable. Then within our materials, we want to prove it. What we need to do is attach evidence directly to important claims. So instead of, we help clients improve efficiency, what we want to do is say clients reduce reporting time by an average of 32% based on 14 implementations. This really gives AI the context to deliver a real response and evaluate you. And again, especially as you think of someone is uploading 5 competitor proposals, maybe 10, because it's so much easier to analyze them now that they get more. And other folks may say something like, we improve efficiency. You say something like average of 32% on 14 implementations. AI is going to produce a more definitive answer about you, and it's going to pull that information up and see it as more legitimate. And so when someone asks about efficiency or someone asks about the process or outcomes, it's going to ignore all the claims that are as simple as improve efficiency. And what it will return is the evidence, because that's what it's about. Quantify it, replace vague value with concrete impact and assumptions. So instead of this will save your team significant time or some flashy headline that maybe marketing came up with, we want to say something like, based on 12 users saving approximately 3 hours per week, the estimated annual time savings is 1,800 plus hours. Again, we want to actually put real numbers to it. It's very similar to the prove it that we just talked about, is that when AI looks across multiple materials, looks across the web, it is going to overlook, it's going to ignore the generic claims, and it is going to surface specificity, evidence, quantifiable numbers. And so you have the choice that when you are uploaded in a sea of different competitors and it's looking at context, are you, is it surfacing the information that makes you valuable, or are you just something that it completely ignores and doesn't bring anything up? Expose the trade-offs. Address risks, requirements, limitations before AI turns them into red flags. Because the reality is that the AI is a new level of understanding, a new level of comparison, and being able to investigate. And so maybe in the past you didn't want to provide a longer document to a prospect. Maybe you didn't want to bring up some of the trade-offs. But the reality now is that the AI, if you don't bring it up, it will do it for you, and it will present that prospect with these trade-offs. And so instead of implementation takes 90 days, we say the biggest timeline risks are delayed system access and unavailable client stakeholders. Because the last thing that we want to do is deliver a AI something that says, oh, they say delivery is 90 days, but here are the things that you might want to look out for. Instead, the AI would answer, delivery is typically in 90 days, and they really call out that you need to make sure that you provide system access and stakeholder access to be successful. It's a completely different way that the AI presents that story. In one, it's saying you're missing information and you should be aware of this. In the other, it's saying this is what they're telling you is the potential issue, and they're confident about it, and it's not making up extra information. And then finally, design for comparison. Assume your material will be evaluated side by side with alternatives. And so the reality is, if you're going to be evaluated side by side, you need to give the right information that it can easily say, this is the comparison between the two or three. In some cases, we're looking at giving that and saying, here are the top 4 competitors we typically look at, and here is a grid of the comparison and how we're different within proposals, because we want that to be delivered correctly. That does some other subtle things like putting you in a class with certain folks. So if there's an outlier competitor, they may look like they're not part of the primary group. So there are other strategies that you can take by manipulating this that actually help you have a better narrative to the AI. And so instead of our approach is highly customized, requires more upfront discovery than standard platforms, but allows workflow. So you're explaining there, but again, you might provide a grid that really does true comparison. So one of the last things to really understand is that none of this happens in a vacuum. When someone uploads a sales material, they may not upload other things. When they upload a proposal, they may not upload other things. But AI is vast. It does have information about your company in some ways, probably already. It scanned the website at some point, has some context from a directory. So there is information that is using as context that your prospect might have never seen. It has access to competitor materials or websites. It's already within its overarching intelligence and understanding. Reviews, things like that, where in the past someone might have gone to one review site, scanned it a little bit. AI is different. It's been out to all of them, even the review sites that are on page 10 of Google, and there's some random comment. AI has that in its brain, and when it's looking at your proposal, that is not missed. It's not overlooked. Whereas in the past, a prospect might have never seen it. Industry benchmarks. Someone, when they're buying something, might not understand the expanse and the detail of industry benchmarks, especially things that maybe were in documents that people have produced on the web. But AI understands that. And then the buyer's internal context. And this is actually a really important point that probably deserves its own slide. But one of the things that AI now does is that it uses the context of your other conversations when it's having new conversations. When I upload a proposal for a solution and I say evaluate this, it's going back and it's looking at multiple of my previous conversations, and it may surface something that say, hey, 2 months ago you had this problem, and looking at this proposal, that actually might make it worse. And so now all of a sudden the AI has a context that can really change the view, and unfortunately even remember back 6 months ago. My AI sometimes brings up nuggets of conversations that I had 7 or 8 months ago with it, and has that now in context of what I'm asking it. So the thing that we have to remember is that all of this stuff, the documents that get uploaded, all this context across the world, a lot of times it's being presented and produced as one single recommendation. One of the things that I keep seeing with AI, especially in the sales process, is that it doesn't hedge. It doesn't answer back, oh, these are great proposals. It's worth looking at them a little bit more. What it does is it says, I've analyzed all this context. Here's the number one company that you should be considering for this. Here's the second one and the reasons that it does not match the first. And then these other ones I would ignore, because it gives you a true recommendation. It doesn't hedge, it doesn't guess, it just says, do this. And I see that over and over. And so now you have to be prepared as a salesperson that your prospect might be coming in with the AI having said, this is your number one best choice. And it could be you, or you could be that second answer where it said, you might want to consider these guys, but ask them these 5 questions to see if they compare to the first option. So it's really a different viewpoint. And so, kind of the big thing that I want people to understand, we talked a lot about the decision stage and sales today, but this is really something that's influencing the entire buyer journey, like we said. Marketing, how you develop your product, sales, support, your pricing, onboarding. AI is now infused in all of those different places. It's so important to understand that the human that you are interacting with across any of these, trying to sell them, support them, onboard them, has that co pilot speaking in their ear. And so that means they're different than they used to be. It's not the same questions, it's not the same reactions, it's not the same advice. And so, really, every company today should be stepping back and thinking about all of these prospect and customer interactions and how they're different and what they need to do to adapt. So, thank you everybody for joining me for today's webinar about influencing buying decisions. Check out either of my books, The Buyer Centric Operating System or The Omniscient Buyer. If you're interested in this topic of how buyers are changing, definitely get The Omniscient Buyer. And if you have questions that you want to look at how can we adapt, reach out to me at Insivia. Something that we do is help people really adapt to this new world of marketing and sales for AI influenced buyers. I appreciate you joining me for the webinar. And trust me, there's going to be a lot of other great ones coming up soon. And I'll see you when I do those next.